Good morning, everyone. My name is Kerry Craig, and I am your host and speaker, or host this morning. It is a pleasure to have you participate on today's webinar, COVID-19, Cash Flow Stability for Local Units of Government. Before I turn it over the webinar to Prosperity Indiana's Executive Director, I want to mention a few housekeeping items. Please be aware that all audio is muted. If you would like to ask a question, there are two ways to do so. You can use the raise hand icon on your screen. We will unmute your line and you may ask your question or questions. You can always type your question or questions in the Q&A box, which is also located on your screen. We all know that technology can be trying these days, especially while working from home. So if you lose your connection, you may also reconnect using the link emailed to you. And finally, if you are a Prosperity Indiana member, after today's webinar, you can find both the presentation and the recording available on our COVID-19 Resources Hub located on our website. And now I'd like to turn it over to our Executive Director, Jessica Love. Jessica?
Thank you, Kerry, and thank you to everyone for joining the webinar today. I'm Jessica Love, Executive Director for Prosperity Indiana, and I've already and repeatedly been amazed by the evidence I've seen of strength and resilience in our own team and the individuals and organizations we serve. We really are better together. And so to help aid efforts to create a successful recovery story for local governments and the people and places they serve, we're happy to partner with the Indiana Bond Bank to provide information on an important resource for communities. And we're thankful for their partnership as well as that of Fifth Third Bank. Fifth Third has been supporting our COVID-19 resource and capacity building response efforts through a Strengthening Our Communities grant and has been a great model for being in this together. I would now like to introduce Jadira Hoptree with Fifth Third. Jadira serves as Vice President and Community Economic Development Manager for Fifth Third Bank Indiana region, overseeing the charitable giving process, deploying Fifth Third Foundation grants, and guiding lending and economic development programs for underserved communities around the state. Jadira?
Good morning, Jessica. Happy Monday, everyone. Hope everyone had a restful weekend. I want to take a moment again to thank Prosperity Indiana team for your continued effort to keep our community informed. And I also want to thank all the presenters today for bringing key information to our community partners for their sustainability. At Fifth Third, we continue supporting and learning from our communities as we have for over 160 years. I'm proud to let you know that so far we have donated close to $400,000 for human needs, small business microlending programs, and capacity building programs like this webinar in the state. And with our commitment to continue supporting inclusive economic mobility, Fifth Third has also developed a menu of virtual financial empowerment tools for adults and for students. Starting with the next job. The next job in the next page is a program that I have mentioned to you in the past. It's a software that leverages the latest tools and teaching to empower job seekers. I'm very pleased to tell you that we have already given 2 scholarships in Indiana for free counseling. As you know, this program allows and helps people to prepare for these days, prepare the resume, and find some new jobs and new opportunities. We also have created the Wellness Support website to offer financial tips during the COVID-19. And you can find that through our webpage, www.53.com. In addition, you, our community partners, can access all the financial empowerment programs that we usually offer in our Financial Empowerment Mobile. Instead of rolling into your market, we are giving you access to all the programs in the website for budgeting, preparing for homeownership, personal financial management, credit counseling, and more. This is a good way for you, if you haven't experienced them before, to test these programs with your clients and your community. We hope to be back in the community side by side in the fall to provide these programs in person. If you would like us to come and visit, don't hesitate to contact me. We still have some days open. We already have organizations like the Central Indiana Urban Leagues, for Wayne Urban Leagues and Dress for Success that will be having this program in the fall. Also, as I mentioned, Fifth Third is hiring. We have over 1,000, well, right now it's about 700 positions open, with 35 open positions in the state of Indiana. Again, visit our website, www.53.com, to learn more about those open positions. We really take seriously our role in helping our communities to get back to work, and these are our ways to continue bringing financial empowerment and workforce development to our community. Again, we are grateful to Prosperity Indiana and the guest speakers for continuing providing information and resources. We look forward to listening and learning throughout the webinar today. Please contact me if you want more information about any of these topics that I presented, and please stay healthy and in good spirit. Together, we will beat this. Carrie, back to you.
Thank you, Jadira, and thank you to our partners at Fifth Third Bank for making today's webinar possible. Now I want to provide those of you who may not know of Prosperity Indiana a bit of a snapshot of who we are. For more than 30 years, Prosperity Indiana has mobilized hundreds of members and thousands of people to create economic opportunities and improve social conditions, particularly for those who are most disadvantaged. Prosperity Indiana is a statewide intermediary organization with a local focus. Prosperity Indiana's member organizations strengthen communities and improve lives in rural, suburban, and urban areas in all of Indiana's 92 counties. Members provide housing opportunity, they meet basic needs, they connect Hoosiers to jobs, and more. Our members represent human services, the arts, legal aid, congregations, workforce development, real estate, health services, financial institutions, philanthropy, all levels of government, community action, community housing development organizations, community development corporations, and local economic development. We impact communities by promoting comprehensive community development efforts across the state, which include social determinants of health and encouraging inclusive growth. We also impact individuals by fostering innovation and financial capability and asset building strategies and increasing opportunities to access resources. Furthermore, we impact organizations by improving member capacity to impact communities and individuals and track progress on their efforts. Our mission statement is that Prosperity Indiana builds a better future for our communities by providing advocacy, leveraging resources, and engaging an empowered network of members to create inclusive opportunities that build assets and improve lives. And we do this in 4 different ways. First, through resources, delivering training, technical assistance, and financial support to organizations, people, and to neighborhoods. Engagement by bringing together residents and practitioners to learn and support each other. Advocacy by advocating for policies that support member work and keeping members informed of policy at the state and national level. And finally, through our many programs, our signature programs that we have at Prosperity Indiana. And now I'd like to introduce Mark Wallner, who is the Executive Director of the Indiana Bond Bank. Prior to joining the IBB, Mark served as the Deputy Chief of Staff for the Indiana Office of the Lieutenant Governor, where he oversaw the performance of 5 state agencies. Key accomplishments during his tenure include guiding the office and its 5 agencies through the transition of 3 lieutenant governors in a span of 10 months, and serving as Executive Director to a state agency on a 10-week emergency basis, during which time Mark designed a strategy to remedy the agency's key $29 million program. Mark previously served as the Deputy Executive Director, General Counsel, and Chief of Staff at the Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority, and during his tenure, he promoted outcome-driven performance champion, a national award-winning initiative which allowed one program to assist 49% more people while reducing process cycle time by 25%. Mark earned his Juris Doctorate degree from Cornell University and is currently the Executive Director of the Indiana Bond Bank. I'd now like to turn it over to Mark.
Well, thank you, Carrie, for that very kind introduction. And good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. It really can't help but be inspired on this Monday morning, hearing from Jadira with all the work that her team is doing, providing resources and job opportunities in this challenging time to Hoosiers. Just critical work. And Jessica and your team, Prosperity Indiana, has truly been a leader during this COVID-19 crisis. Really, from the community conversations you started, gosh, back in March when really the impact of the pandemic began to hit Indiana, your responses with guiding your membership on the federal response, and even helping with leadership trainings and how to manage operations during these times, really has been, again, a good reminder of the work that Prosperity does. And really just a reflection, I think, reminder for me of that summit that we all shared, gosh, not too long ago, but in some ways it feels like eons ago, where we got to see each other, and that energy, I think, is still carried forward with the work that Jessica and Jadira and Carrie have shared this morning. And I hope to continue some of that here, and specifically offer a resource for local units of government. I know many of you are members of Prosperity, and we know that local units of government, like many of us, just on a human level, are facing challenges during the COVID-19 situation. And so really want to focus in. Bond Bank, the Indiana Bond Bank, has a number of resources, but one in particular, I think we want to make you aware of, not just to keep Indiana schools, but Indiana communities thriving as well. And you've got see our mission statement there below, that our mission really is to provide targeted financial solutions to local governments. And we do that because we are a public sector agency. Unlike Fifth Third, we are not a bank in any sort of traditional sense of the word. We are a public agency that lives under the Office of the State Treasurer, actually, and we report to a board of directors, and we are really public sector, mission driven, looking to provide community development solutions with a financial twist, so to speak, like our colleagues over at Indiana Housing Community Development Authority and also the Office of Community and Rural Affairs. So I want to introduce you to our team next, who is here on the call, and our team is here to want to be very interactive on this call. We've assembled a lot of resources here for COVID-19. Again, I'm Mark, the Executive Director. Also on the line with us, we've got Ron Mangus, who's our Director of Operation. Ron has been with the Bond Bank for many years, and I think has relationships with many of you out here in the audience. One of the neat things about this program, which we call advanced funding, is that we have assembled a turnkey team for you. And so you don't have to go out and look for special legal counsel who knows how to do municipal finance work, or municipal advisors, or any of the like. We've got kind of a very turnkey operation. And so on the line, we have Dennis Otten from Bose McKinney Evans LLP, and Dennis serves as our local unit of government counsel. We have Angie Steno, who's the Bond Bank's municipal advisor. She's with Crow LLP. And we have Bradley Bingham as bond counsel with Barnes and Thornburg. So Ron, Dennis, Angie, and Brad are with me on the line today. And as we get your questions, we'll all be happy to jump in and answer those. And I will note, please feel free to use the chat box if you have any questions for us. Would love this to be interactive. We're learning as much from you, I think, as you are from us in terms of how you're responding to the situation in your communities. We know the COVID-19 pandemic is impacting communities differently across the state. And so hearing from you and what your needs are helps us assemble a stronger program. We can advance to the next slide, Carrie. Kind of get into the why we're here. I think, as you may be aware, in response to COVID-19, Governor Holcomb issued an executive order which requires counties, to waive late penalties for property tax payments made for 60 days after they're due on May 11th, understanding the situation that many folks are in. What this means, though, for local units of government, and that could be cities, towns, counties, schools, libraries, anyone that relies on those property taxes as revenues to provide their services, that means you could have some cash flow disruption, that the money you thought that would come in when it normally comes in, when it's due and payable on May 11th, it may not come in when you're expecting it this year. And really, that kind of sets the stage for what we do here. Again, bond banks saw that need and saw there was potential for units of government through no fault of their own to have a short-term budget situation where they have expenditures that continue to need to be paid and they don't have necessarily the revenues in when they expected them. And so I want to present the advanced funding overview, and that the advanced funding tool is the program and the resource that we have here at the bond bank. And the interesting thing is, while this is very relevant now during this COVID-19 situation, the advanced funding program has been something that the bond bank team has offered for over 31 years, if you can believe that. And over that course of time have provided over $13.5 billion to local units of government with temporary cash flow assistance. This is just something that happens over the course of time, just with the way that revenues get distributed twice a year and expenses happen 12 months of the year. And so sometimes there's just disruptions in terms of when a big expenditure needs to be made. It may not line up with the cycle of when those revenues necessarily come in or those receipts come in. One of the neat things the bond bank offers that you really may not find anywhere else is the ability to pool with each other. And that just sounds kind of like what it is, jumping in the pool. We've got we serve multiple entities at one time. And so you get efficient market access by sharing those costs. So all your costs are spread across the number of participants. So each of you don't have to go out and get an attorney, as I said, or a municipal advisor or a trustee, et cetera. We provide those for you and then spread the costs amongst all the participants. And hopefully, again, when you're coming to the market through the bond bank program, it's been known for over 31 years that investors in the market recognize that. And perhaps you as a local unit don't get out in the market and look for financing all that often. So you may have more of that name recognition through the bond bank as well. Again, as I hope you see by our team all being here today, the hands-on assistance is another thing that I think sets our program apart. We are, again, mission-driven, public sector focused, and our job is to help you through this situation, because this is what we do every day, and we know you're probably juggling 15 other balls as well. So let's move in a little bit closer, if we can flip to the next slide, and just do a really brief overview of the process for the program. So let's say you anticipate you may need some cash flow assistance. You may run a cash flow deficit in one of these upcoming months because of the property tax penalty waiver. So you'll complete a one-page participation survey, which I will send the link out on the website, or perhaps one of the panelists can put that in the chat box from our side. And that link is just a one-page, it's a non-binding survey, and all that does is raise your hand virtually to say, hey, we're looking at our budgets and we're looking at our projected receipts, and we don't know that the receipts that we thought we would get are necessarily going to come in. We may need to use your program, and here's the month we may need to use it. In response, we'll send you the application packet. We'll help you work through that. And again, I'll get into what the application packet looks like here in just a second. But really, it's as straightforward as that. As we walk down to the end of the line there, we will provide the financing out to you then. So let's get through one of the advances, I think, what I hope this process shows. In response to COVID-19, the bond bank saw, instead of doing this one time a year, we know entities are going to be faced with a lot of different situations locally. Different counties may be affected differently in terms of how much is paid late, when that money comes in. And so we opened up multiple closing rounds, and if we can get to the next slide, that's a customization that we made specifically in response. So we've got 4 closing dates upcoming with these multiple application rounds. And we can even just flip right into that next timeline slide, because I think it's really helpful to see. So I want you to see that very last, I should say next to last row, the funds distributed line. So we are planning on having funds available to you if you need them at the end of May. We probably need to work with you here really quickly to get that done, but we can still get you in if you need funds by the end of May. If you need them by the end of June, end of July, or at the end of August. So again, these are all multiple opportunities that you would have to come in. And again, we're not asking you to borrow in May if you don't need the funds until July. And so you don't have to borrow for longer than you need to. This is just a very kind of hopefully a quick hitter in and out mechanism for you to true up that budget situation that, again, through no fault of your own, may be out of whack this year. I think the rest of this sheet is fairly self-explanatory with the schedule. This again is also on our website, which we will provide a link out to. So the application and cash flows are part of that. And then there's some, the legal ordinance and resolution process, which I'm sure Dennis can talk to if you have any questions about what that looks like, follows. And then we distribute funds to you on those closing dates. Before we open up to questions, I've referred to the participation survey. So if you recall the participation survey, it's highlighted in that red box on the screen in front of you. That's on our website, which is you can find directly through inbondbank.com. There should be a pop-up that comes. It'll take you right to that page, or you can type in the full web address. I think the number one thing that you'll want to take away is if you think there may be any need in your community to have some cash flow bridge assistance, would be to complete that participation survey. And those are highlighted there. Again, should be very easy. If you have any trouble working through that, please don't hesitate to contact our team. Again, it just identifies who you are, that you may have a need, and then what month you think that need will be in. Before we get to Q&A, I think we can just go into real big picture what the application looks like. The application is really just two parts. The first is standard credit application. Some of that is your information, and even if you worked with the bond bank in the past, because we know many of you are working remotely, maybe on cell phones, maybe on different emails, it's important to just complete all that information so that we can get a hold of you at the right addresses at this time. And we also have some basic background profile information about your unit, as well as the dates funds are needed. And Angie, I'm sure, can talk more about what is required on the credit application to the extent that any of you have any questions. We'll also ask for a cash flow, and the cash flow is really the guts of what I would call the advanced funding program, in that it really shows us looking at historical revenues and expenditures and looking at how you project revenues and expenditures. The cash flow really tells us when and if you'll run into that cash flow deficit situation. So it'll help us identify as a tool what your need is and when that occurs, and help us size the amount that we need to provide to you to get through this situation. I will start with hopefully maybe to get you thinking about some potential Q&A. We've got some sample FAQs here on the next slide that we can just work through, and then I would really like to open it up for any questions that you may have. We often get questions about how much an entity is eligible to borrow, and again, if you have specific questions about this, Angie can talk about it, but it looks a little complicated on the screen. But you're looking at your largest cash deficit over the next 6 months, or 80% of your anticipated property tax revenues, receipts, coming into that particular fund. And you can borrow across multiple funds if you need some in the operating fund, parks fund, whatever that may look like. We often have units work with us who have deficits in multiple funds. I think over the applicants we have, we right now kind of an average of 2.5 to 3 funds are being borrowed for, or borrowed in right now, just due to COVID-19. And again, I think the second question on the FAQ gets kind of the uncertainty of this time that we're in, is that we don't necessarily know, you don't necessarily know how much is going to come in on time, as you might expect on that May 11th due date. And so our team can help work with you on how to project that. If you're uncertain, you can certainly call the county auditor and get some early reads perhaps on what's coming in. We also have some just baseline statistics for some counties from the Department of Local Government Finance on a county by county basis, which is not 100% complete data set, but that helps us kind of project escrowed versus non-escrowed property taxes and which of those are exempt from the late payment executive order. And so all that's to say, really getting to that second question, if we can provide assistance in helping you project on your cash flow worksheet, we're happy to do that. I would really love to open up to any questions at this time. I've covered a lot of ground. I hope, if nothing else, the biggest things you've heard is that if you do run into a cash flow situation, or you do have a big debt service payment due at the end of June or beginning of July and need a way to pay that, or you have big expenditures like payroll, and COVID's kind of throwing all that out for you, we're here to help. I mean, the Indiana Bond Bank lives for these units of government, lives for the public sector, and so we are here in this situation to assist you. With that, I would love to open up to any questions in the chat box, or from Jessica, Carrie, Jadira, any of you, please feel free to ask any questions of us and our team.
Are there any questions? If so, please raise your hand, or as Mark mentioned, please type your question in the question box and we'll get an answer for you. At this time, Mark, there are no questions.
Very good. I think we can. I just want to thank Prosperity Indiana for.
We have one question.
Very good.
What is the repayment period interest rate or percentage?
So the repayment period, I should let someone else talk. You've heard my voice enough. Angie, do you want to talk about the repayment period and how we're structuring these different notes?
Sure. So the interest rate will not be known until the time of actually close to pricing, because we will be looking at, where the market is when it comes time to price. However, we are offering quite a bit of flexibility in the actual repayment. So if you would maybe flip back to the slide, Mark, that has some of the timing on there, that may be helpful. But we're really going to allow multiple options to obtain funding, as Mark shows here on the slide. So you'll see that funds will be distributed on multiple dates. And then if you participate, for example, in the late May program, and if you receive funds on May 28th, say you find yourself in a good position where you're ready to pay those funds back, you'll have the opportunity then to pay those funds back on set scheduled repayment dates, days prior to the June closing, the August, and the July. So we will have multiple rounds of funds being distributed and multiple set early repayment dates. You also will have then the option, if you're not in the position to repay your notes by the time we issue our late August note, to actually have that warrant outstanding until December. So really trying to be as flexible as we can. So there will be set closing dates as well as set repayment dates.
And Angie, Jeff Underwood also asked what the percentage of interest is, and also are there any closing costs?
Sure. Hey, Jeff. Good to have you with us. All of the costs are built into that rate, so there will not be any upfront cash or payment required from any of the participants. All of those fees are all built into that overall borrowing rate. Again, that borrowing rate is not set though until we do get closer to the time to enter the market, and we usually have that rate between 7 to 10 days prior to closing is when we would know that all-in borrowing rate. But again, it is an all-in rate, so there are no funds required to come from the QE to the bond bank. And QE, I mean qualified entity or local unit of government.
Molly Trueblood asks, are there any sources that provide information to local units of government on projected deficits of government units by size or location? Can they use the Department of Local Government?
If I'm hearing that correctly, I think it's maybe just guidance with the overall cash flows. So when we look at a cash flow deficit, we're really looking at your individual cash basis. So as Mark mentioned, there is an Excel template that we asked participants to complete. And what that requires, it requires 2 historical years of information. The cash flow itself is really simplified, so we allow you to really summarize much of your receipts and expenditures in just a couple of categories. And then we ask you to look at your 2020 budget when putting that estimated 2020 cash flow together. And based on your individual circumstance per fund, it allows us to see what month you may run a shortfall. That shortfall month then determines how much you would need to borrow for that particular fund. So there isn't an overall, I would say, average of what that deficit is. It really depends on the unit itself and depends on how their expenditures are paid out over the year. I know some units may have heavier expenditures maybe in the first half of the year or the second. So it really depends on what that mismatch timing of revenues to expenditures are, dependent on your own situation in your community. And the bond bank team and myself are here to help. So if anyone's working on the cash flow and they're struggling on how to fill that out, we are just a phone call away or an email away and happy to help.
Are there any other questions for the bond bank team?
Well, thank you, Carrie. I would say if we just flip to the very end, I think the one thing I would just leave everyone with is if you think of questions, please don't hesitate. I think we've got one more there. If there's any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out and send those to us at midyear@inbondbank.com. You can always reach us by any of the other available means. Again, there's a link there on your screen for the participation survey. Again, non-binding way to share with us just the information that we need to reach out to you and speak with you about what you're facing and talk with you through the steps that Angie just talked about. So, again, we really appreciate the leadership that Prosperity has shown over these last 6 to 8 weeks, and the leadership that you and your team continue to show, Jessica and Carrie and the others on your team. Thank you again to Jajira for sponsoring this webinar. We know it wouldn't be possible without you. And so I know I speak on behalf of the entire bond bank team. Thank you for your time this morning. It's been a pleasure, and we stand here to serve. Thank you much.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you to the Indiana Bond Bank team for their participation, for putting together this presentation for all of you today. We want to thank all of our participants who are also listening and participating in this webinar as well. Please join us if you can next week, next Monday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. We will be looking at how to fundraise in economic downturns. And again, that will be via webinar next Monday, May the 4th, from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Again, thank you for your participation and have a great day, everyone.